Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this show is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and it's coming to you from scenic downtown Woodstock on Channel 23, as well as on YouTube. And we've got a very exciting guest this evening, one who's really hard to schedule because she's busy, and her dance card is full, to quote an old lady. So we have Anula. Anula, will you introduce yourself? Tell everybody why you're here.
I will. My name's Anula Courtis. I am a sitting council person, and I am also a town supervisor candidate. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
And we are so happy to have you. And we feel so fortunate because your schedule is very, very full, and you just don't have that much time to hang out for interviews. But tell me, what is going on?
Well, there's a lot going on. So we've got the campaign stuff, which is about 20 hours a day, 7 days a week right now, preparing for some of the forums that are going to be coming up next week. There's a lot of messaging outreach. Aside from the election, we have town business that's happening. So the Bear Task Force has drafted some legislation that we're doing a final review of. And we're going to get that to the supervisor and hopefully onto the agenda so that we've got new legislation in town that will, we believe, help protect bears by penalizing people who leave their garbage cans out there, and then the bears come along and then they make a mess everywhere and your neighbors are upset and they're cleaning up your garbage. So we're very excited about that.
You know, that's very true. I live close to the city, and I had bears a lot, and they were cute. I loved them. I loved the mothers, and they would be sitting in my garden, and each baby would have, you know, a trash bag, and it was really, really cute, but I couldn't deal with it. So I did and I'm sharing this because I felt like it was a wonderful decision, but not everybody can do the things I did. I do not have trash that comes by the truck anymore. I don't have that. I get in my car, I take the trash, and I go out to the dump. And there is nothing in my yard. And I don't have bears, I don't have stray cats, I don't have other wild animals. It's clean.
Yeah.
And the trash has the dump. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And it's not just about the clean, although that's a pain in the neck, especially if it's not your own trash. It's bad enough if it is your own trash, but oftentimes it could be your neighbor's that ends up in your yard. But the thing is that the bear actually needs so many calories every single day that human behavior is actually teaching them to kind of get into and very close to humans, and eventually they get closer and closer, and somebody will call the DEC and they will in fact euthanize that bear. They don't have the ability, there's just not enough of the DEC officers to relocate the bears. So we like to say on the Bear Task Force that a fed bear is a dead bear.
Yeah.
And that's why we did this contest with the children, which was a whole lot of fun. But the legislation is also going to reinforce, humans adjusting their behavior so that bears don't end up euthanized.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that's on your agenda.
It is.
What else have we got?
Trying to think like what else we've got. There's so many things going on. Another exciting thing is we have a certain amount of money that is allocated for the arts. So there was ARP money that was allocated, $10,000 for last year and $10,000 for this year. So I recently drafted up an application that I thought could be utilized by arts organizations, and I sent that to the entire town board for review and comment. Hopefully everybody will have a chance to provide their input for me. I'm happy to make the adjustments. I will be reaching out to one gentleman who leads a symphony group here. He has some input as well. And I'd like to see that come up to the town board for vote so that we could start to get those applications in. And additionally, I am recommending to the supervisor and the rest of the town board that we not be responsible for determining who gets that money, that in fact we have a committee of different artists make that decision. So we've got all different types of arts. There's music and sculpture and painting. And so a nice, well-rounded committee could be very beneficial for selecting who gets the money and how that's appropriated. So that's something else that I think it's nice because we are the colony of the arts, and so there are these dollars there, and it'd be nice to see what folks will do with it to help improve our culture here in Woodstock.
That's wonderful. I've noticed that you've got an election coming up. When are we going to vote?
So I don't recall early voting. I'm so sorry. Night is blending into day, but
Yes.
June 24th is the main election. I think that it's June 12th where early voting starts. And the forums, there are going to be 4 forums and 1 meet and greet that the Democratic Party is hosting for Democratic candidates. The first forum comes up next week. It is going to be May 8th at 6:30, and it's at the Woodstock Town Hall. And it's going to be 2 hours long, and there's going to be 90 minutes of Q&A, which is quite a lot of questions could be asked in that period of time. And the questions are all going to relate back to the topic, candidate qualifications and vision. So every candidate for council or for supervisor will be able to share his or her vision and also talk a little bit about how they plan to implement that vision here in Woodstock.
So that's an important one. So let's get that date down. May the 8th, that's this coming Thursday. And that's from 6:30 to 8:30 at the town hall.
Yes,
And so if you don't know who the candidates are, this is a good thing to go to.
it sure is.
And then I have here that you've got another meeting on the 22nd, which is also a Thursday. And it's from 6:30 to 8:30. And then on May the 31st, which is a Saturday, we've got a 10:30 to 12:30 in the morning at the town hall. And then we go on to June the 8th, and I have a brand new calendar, so it's really difficult for me. We go on to June the 8th, which is a Sunday, which is from 2:30 to 4:30. So we have a Saturday, but then we have a Sunday afternoon. Now, this one is at the Hornbeck Community Center.
Yes.
Can we please let everybody know exactly where the Woodstock Town Hall is?
Yes, so it's right by the police station, right on
Okay.
Tinker Street.
So that's good. It's got a nice central location.
Yes, and for people who can't make it there, it will be recorded, and then it will be put out for people so folks will be able to watch that.
And then again, on June the 22nd, we've got a meet and greet again at the Hornbeck, at this community center.
Yes.
So there's a lot of opportunity for someone who feels like they're not really in tune with what's going on. This is a chance to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
And I can remember, the location is extremely important, because I can remember when I first moved here, a couple of times the meetings were held someplace and I went to the wrong place because I didn't know, I just didn't know.
I think that's a good point, and people probably assume that they're all going to be at the community center just because it's a little bit bigger, but they're not. They're going to be held. The first 3 are going to be held at the town hall right on Tinker Street.
I know that in times past, when I had events that for the food pantry that we weren't really sure, of the location, I would station somebody at one of these alternate places so when people drove up, I could say, this is the wrong place, you need to be over there.
It's a great idea.
Because that's what you want to do. People get discouraged in then they don't come.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So you've got this vote coming up. You've been working on this for a long time.
Yes.
And it seemed to me, I did go to the sign painting one. It seems to me you have a really good group of people working with you.
I'm really fortunate. So the petitions came in. I had over 400 signed petitions, and I'm very proud because my petitions were carried by a very broad and diverse group of Woodstock residents. Very different age groups, very different life situations, and I think that that's reflective of the work that I've done, and certainly the work that I want to continue to do moving forward. So I'm very proud. I feel very fortunate. There's a great group of people who have they put so much of their own time into this, and what I really love is when folks bring their kids. So
Yes.
we had a sign making party, and there were 9-year-old kids there, drawing vote for Anula signs, and one little kid put a little bear next to my name, which was adorable. So they associated me with the Bear Task Force, and it was really it's very joyful, and it reminds me that we still can have community here, despite a lot of the challenges that we have, whether it's national or local, that we're still very much aligned in the things that are important, and we still can come together, whether we agree or not, to get a job done. So I find it to be very heartening.
Well, I found it to be very encouraging, because here you had children painting the signs. And of course, I was painting a sign too. Mine was the worst sign on the block, but that's okay. We're not all artists. But the important thing is these little children had a good time with people of all ages, and they will remember that they did this for an election.
Yeah.
So this was civic training for these kids, and they didn't even feel like they were learning anything.
That's right.
It was a lesson, and they didn't even realize it.
That's right. And they did. They had a great time. They were very much into it. And as it should be. This is exactly how it should be.
Yeah.
So
So that was just almost ideal. It was just almost not real, but it was real. It happened that way.
Yeah.
And so what are some things that you have? What are some issues that you guys are going to be dealing with in the next year, the coming year? What are you dealing with now? What's happening?
So, well, as usual, we've got a lot of things. So the current town board is dealing with certain police matters. Much of that discussion is in executive session, and what that means is that we are not supposed to speak about those matters publicly.
Absolutely.
But things are moving forward, which is great. We have water issues, so good news, bad news. Testing is continuing with every well. Unfortunately, we have a situation here where a second well does have is recording some chemicals in there. And so it's my feeling that we as a town board need to come together and discuss that. It's something that I plan to bring up at the next town board meeting so that we can discuss that openly and transparently. There is work that continues on a monthly basis with the state regarding water and water safety. Woodstock is and has been, I believe, leading the way and working with the state for drinking water source protection. And what that means is our water is getting mapped, so we know how water travels throughout Woodstock. And the state is going to help us implement safety plans. So that's really important work that several people have been working on for a very, very long time. Julia Blaylock, Councilperson Laura Rickey, We have another individual, Arlene Weissman. So those three, I think, led the way with the drinking water source protection and teaming up with the state. Now more people have joined on to pay attention to this. And what was nice was they invited every candidate for every office to participate in monthly calls so that we're all on the same page. So that regardless of who might win this election, we don't have a hiccup as far as implementation. So that's very important work that is going forward. Yeah, it's just a lot. There's always a lot of things going on with the town, you know.
Well, water has always been, I've been here for 25 years. Water was an issue when we got here.
Yeah.
And every time a house goes up, it's an issue.
Yeah.
And every time we have a drought, it's an issue. I mean, hey, you cannot avoid it.
Yeah, it really is a problem. And now, given our knowledge about the chemicals in water, the testing becomes more important, and the coordination of testing, not just the town wells, but also individuals' wells. So that's something that the state is working with us on, and I think that's a smart approach. So yeah, I mean, water is a very important commodity, whether it is clean drinking water or enough water. So this is another thing that concerns me. If we look around the country, just the water tables are coming down, and so what does that mean for us? We have more people moving here. Exactly how much water do we have? And as we look at building, for instance, so another thing that's moving forward is some efforts by the housing committee. How are we going to, do we have the water to sustain how many people moving into a certain place? So there's a lot. These are kind of big topics to think about.
Well, I think ultimately, objectively looking at this situation, to continue to have the relevance of water on the table at all times is extremely important, because there are a lot of people who want things to happen in our community.
Right.
But it goes beyond the water. It's what about our streets? What about our infrastructure, period.
Yeah.
And, nobody thinks about it. Nobody discusses it, nobody anything. And
You're
so that's why when people talk about the water, I'm all for it.
Yeah. I think water is going to be that topic that never goes away anymore.
I hope.
Right. It just, I don't see it going away anymore. But you're right, infrastructure as well. So, the maintenance of
and
the town.
The fact that you have the state involved.
Yes.
I can remember years ago, I was on the town board, and a prominent politician came through and started talking about water. It was enough to make our jaws drop. I mean, we were all just sitting there minding our own business, and there we were with real problems. And if you don't stay on top of it, you've lost.
I agree. I think you're absolutely right. And a relationship with the state is critical.
Extremely
maintaining the ability to maintain good relationships. Doesn't mean we agree all the time, but the ability to maintain good relationships with the state and the county, frankly, I think is going to be more important as we go forward, just so that we can coordinate. If something goes wrong, we need to be able to work together. And forget about that, but how about preemptively being prepared, and utilizing resources and just having the ability to work together in preparation for anything that could happen moving forward. I think that's very important.
That is so important, and you don't realize it until disaster strikes.
Yeah.
When we had Superstorm Sandy, and we had Hurricane whatever, and they came right at once, I was going around with the pantry to different places, to different talks, and meeting people from other communities, blah, blah, blah. But one man stood up and he said, when all of this is over and a person comes from the state, if they have to stick out their hand and introduce themselves, you're lost.
Very interesting.
So having the communication that you are building, Anula, that is priceless.
I really believe so. Just given where our country is going, building a relationship with the county, with the state, with the Attorney General's office,
Yes.
these are things that are so important on so many levels for our residents to be able to pick up the phone and call someone who you have a relationship with to come and help us as necessary is something that I truly believe, like this is the way this is how stuff's going to get done moving forward.
And it's how the proper decisions are going to be made. You can't, when you have an issue and you're trying to deal with it, you're probably not everybody is going to agree. But it's what happens in the end that serves the people properly.
Yeah.
And that's you cannot overestimate the importance of that.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because, push comes to shove, Woodstock is a delightful community, and we want it to be viable for a long time. And just coming into town and screaming and yelling is not the answer.
No, it's isolating. It's not spreading. It's not building goodwill. After a while, people tune that out. I mean, how much negativity and screaming does anybody want to hear in their life? There's enough coming out of DC right now, right? So we've got more than enough. People want people to be able to speak to each other, disagree in a mostly respectful manner, and do what's right for the majority of people, not just my way or the highway. And this type of yelling, and it's exactly what's wrong with the country at this time. We don't need that here. We really don't need that here. It's not going to help us in any way, shape, or form.
That's true. So keeping that first on the agenda is going to positively affect all of the decisions.
I think so. It's interesting because I get that people put that into a question sometimes. Well, what would you do to help make Woodstock a more peaceful place? Wow, if only I had a magic wand. But I do think there are certain things that we can implement to help us move there. And I think that better communication is one thing. I think a lot about that. We're such a small community, and there is a contingency of 24/7. There's a lot of vitriol. I mean, anybody who goes online for 5 minutes will find it. So, how do we come together as a community? And I realize that where there are these gaps in communication, that's where that not productive stuff fills the gap, So I think we could have better communication, and that's something that I really, if elected, it's literally a week one item. We're just gonna communicate every single week to people, good, bad, or indifferent, what's going on. I mean, that's going to be part of the job to have this open and direct communication. Break down any barriers that may exist. And I think that will help go a long way, because as people are better informed, then you've got people in the community who are going to share actual news, and people feel better when they know the truth.
Yes.
There's not the speculation and what if scenario, and it will alleviate some of the fear mongering that does happen. We'll see.
Well, a community in fear is a real sad thing to experience.
It rips itself apart.
Yes.
That's how we rip ourselves apart.
Yes. And overcoming fear is something that comes from within one,
Yeah.
but it's really hard to deal with it on a community level.
It is, unless we start to look at people as individuals and also how to engage more people. So like that sign making party, how do we engage more people in our local government so that it, you know, we have more people involved in the things that they care most about, and then they can communicate that in the community. It's what I really believe. This is how we're going to come together for the most part. We can't, not everybody wants to come together. We just won't come together around every topic, but it's certainly something that is achievable just as humans, just like that sign making party.
Yeah.
So
Do you have any people that are showing up consistently at the meetings?
oh yes, yes. There are people who show up consistently, people who have a lot, they have their topics, we can say, that they care most passionately about. And mostly they're looking for updates on those topics, whether it's water or what's going to happen with, let's say, the youth center, or whatever their topic is. They do show up, but there's a core contingency that shows up, I would say, to almost every town board meeting.
What I'm looking for is, the first time I went to a meeting, there was this woman sitting there, and I just sat down. I was new to town. Nobody knew me or anything. Here I was. And she leaned over and she introduced herself to me. And she said, "I am the corporate memory. I attend every meeting." And she sat on the front row and never said a word the whole time. And is there anybody doing that now?
I think the people who show up have a lot to say. I'm not sure if they listen, but they have a lot to say. So
They're interacting.
they're interacting. I don't know if they are focused on just their topic, or if they are in fact holding all of the information, like this individual who you're mentioning. But I love that, because it's nice to have people who understand and hold the history of multiple things happening in town, because oftentimes one thing intersects with the other. We can't talk about the youth center without housing, or all these things, they all come together. Schools shutting down and youth center, like, these things intersect. So I love the idea, and I hope that they're out there.
I think so. If you have people going to all the meetings,
We do have
I
some
think
who
that's
show up.
important.
Yeah.
How is the youth center coming along?
So the youth center they did another great presentation to the public a few weeks ago. And right now the town board has to make a decision on what language is going to go onto the referendum. So the people of Woodstock are going to get a chance to vote on the youth center, and do we replace that youth center? And I shouldn't say replace that youth center, I should be more clear. So do we build a new youth center in the general location of where the current one is? Or do we build a bigger $11 million effort? And I think that's what it's going to come down to, but each town board member is now thinking about the options that they want to put on this referendum. And I imagine the supervisor will poll us for what we think. Do we just have a replace the current youth center? Do we have the whole $11 million project? Do we have something in the middle? Do we have all three? So we will see. So it's right now with the town board.
Very nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What about the firehouses?
Nothing. Well, what's going on with the firehouses?
I don't know.
Nothing with the town board at this minute.
Well, they stick to their own knitting.
They do. They take care of, like, they have their own everything.
Right.
Right. So
they are a closed society, I believe.
yes. Yeah. that they run everything very nicely.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So that's not an issue for you.
It's not an issue, but what I did do was I went to one of the fire commissioners and I asked him this question. What do you need from us, the town board, moving forward, given the weather changes, the water shortages, the fires that rage through? So it's Commissioner Holland, and he said that he would go to each of the 5 different board meetings that they have, and he would raise that question, and then he and I will get together.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I thought it was really important for us, while they're doing a great job with managing themselves, and they have really good practices that I think we could learn from, by the way. We as a town board are going to have to support them. You know, if you think about the fires that happened last summer, I mean, that was terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were close to home.
Yes.
And so we should be thinking ahead and be ready. And I think I hope they appreciated that, you know, thinking forward. And I'm looking forward to hearing what they need from us.
Yes. I know that there is a tendency, it seems to me, that in the fire department, the people sort of, you know, hang together. I know that they are there, you know, the families are close-knit,
Yes.
everything is together, and they do a wonderful job,
Yeah.
you know. So we're lucky to have the good fire support.
They're an amazing group of people. I had mentioned the last time I was on here, one of my proudest moments was being able to help broker that 10% property tax reduction. It's a small gesture, but at the end of the day, you know, I always think these are the people who respond to a fall, a fire, and everybody's running one way and they're running the other way.
Right.
You know, and that takes a lot of courage, a lot of dedication, and they do it just because they love doing it, which is
Right.
amazing.
It's their obligation, it's their community
Yeah.
obligation.
Yeah, it's like such a big character that they have to do this work, you know, so I certainly appreciate that.
And what about the schools?
Well, so the town board has no authority over the school district. That said, of course, we all have our opinions, you know, as residents and as voters. There is a vote coming up, and there's vigorous discussion. I'm amazed at how civil the discussion is online for schools. I think that actually we all could take a good lesson from them, because these are probably parents who feel so strongly for their kids. But the question appears to be, if you vote yes, then there'll be a consolidation of the school and Woodstock Elementary would shut down. At least this is what it appears to be to me. And if you vote no, then more than likely, if the school board is listening, then Woodstock Elementary will stay open. So these are the choices that people will have. Yeah, it's a big decision. It's an emotional decision. I know a lot of parents want their kids to stay in the school that they love and where there are smaller class sizes and a shorter commute, things like that. But yeah.
There are some big decisions coming up this next year.
Yeah.
And they don't always hinge around the town board,
Right.
but they're there.
They're
And
there.
if the town board functions well, those decisions are going to be less difficult.
Right.
So it's like the town board is the hub,
I agree. It's a good way to put it.
you know, and it's like if you have the foundation working, then these other things are easier to move with.
Yeah.
And the decision about the school is not a decision that you can put off infinitely. It is a decision about which must be made, but it's hard.
It is.
And so that's one of those decisions that, you know, you cannot avoid.
No, absolutely not. And you know, it appears to come down to keep the school open or not.
Yeah.
And so I know, you know, many people want the school to stay open. The vote happens in May this month. I think it's May 20th. Don't quote me on that. So once again, the voters will decide.
And what other directions are we going in?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, you're right that you know, so many big decisions. I mean, and the town board can't weigh in as a town board into a decision like the school, but we're left with the repercussions if
Right.
that school closes and all of a
Right.
sudden it becomes, you know, high-end condos or something.
Right.
Right. So we're actually left dealing with that. You know, and there are several such situations that we have to consider. What kind of a Woodstock are we going to be moving forward? So it's an interesting time, and I think that the ability to look at things singularly, but also as it relates to everything else, is going to be so important moving forward. And you're right that a healthy communicating town board is going to be imperative so that we can deal with these things to the best of our ability.
Right. And a dysfunctional town board just creates more chaos.
It will, and it's going to distract us, and it's not going to be what Woodstock wants. I don't think Woodstock wants that. I think, and I hope that when people look at the candidates, that whether it's for supervisor or for council, that people consider the character of the person and how well they will work with other people, even if we disagree, right? And I think that's going to be very important. It'll be very new, that's for sure. We've got 2 council seats that are open. We've got 1 supervisor seat that's open. Should I win, I get to appoint somebody to my council seat, so that would be another change. And there's the potential that there would be 4 new people on that town board, or at least, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
It's exciting,
Yeah.
very exciting.
So, and all of it hinges on people voting, and fortunately, you're going to have opportunities for the people.
More than the President of the United States, apparently. 4 forums and a meet and greet. Yeah, I think the President has, 2, the Vice President 1, so we will be out there speaking with the public a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, the thing is that for those of us who have lived in the community for a long time, the board members do make a difference.
Mm, yeah.
And the town supervisor makes a big difference. And it's the education, it's how the person grew up, it's the training, it's the spirituality, it's everything. It's the whole package.
I think so. I think almost more now than ever, given the whole given we've got these problems nationally, they're going to filter down to the state, to the county, hopefully not to us. We're in a solid position right now, but yeah, it's an interesting time. It's exciting, and it's a great opportunity also. I think we also have a chance to start leading on a lot of these things, and that's what I'm very excited about as well.
If the elected people are leaders.
Yes. Yeah, true. Very true.
I mean, that leading is something that you just don't wake up and say, okay, I'll lead.
Mm. Right. Very true.
It's something that you work on in kindergarten. and there's a lot that, wisdom counts for a lot.
Mm. Life experience.
Absolutely.
Learning from those experiences, adapting from those experiences. Yeah, it's definitely a process.
Yes. And of course, each town board member, each supervisor, each person who comes to Woodstock and takes on a project, because a lot of people come to town and they take on a project, or a lot of people are born in this town and they take on a project. They meet with criticism.
There's
You know?
a lot of that these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's becoming very fashionable.
Unfortunately.
Yes. What do you think is one of the biggest problems that you faced last term?
There are a number of them that come to mind. That's a tough question.
I didn't mean for it to be tough.
No, it's okay. I think that one of the biggest problems is a frustration about the ability to move things faster. So, I don't mean to sound very negative, but, you know, if you stare at the same glass for 10 years, it looks clean. But if you stare at that glass, you know, for a month, you say, you know, we might do better.
Yeah.
You know, so I can see the opportunities, and I want to go for those opportunities. And at the same time, I understand and have learned a lot about the process and bringing people along. So it's been a challenge, and as well an opportunity. I have no idea if I answered your question. I'm trying to be diplomatic in my reply.
Well, I think opportunities is a wonderful word, and I'm so glad that you used it.
Yeah, I
Because
do look
that
at
is-
it that way.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
that's what you have.
Yeah.
That's what the town board has. That's what anybody who works on a committee has.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you know, also with the negativity, I think that there are some task forces doing things, and we can learn from how they're doing it. So if I look at the housing group, or even the youth task force, they're doing things in a more transparent manner. They of their own desire are coming to the town board and to the public, and they're updating people with some regularity. And so the temperature in the room goes down because not only do they update, but they listen, especially housing. I want to call housing out. They listen and they adapt. And I'll give you an example. They hired a firm, Fisher Associates, to look at all these town-owned properties and to select 3 that they want to dig in a little bit more deeply. Which one will be good for affordable housing? And so the town board had a debate, and they had selected 2 parking lots and Xena Highwoods Road. And I felt very strongly, like, why are we looking at 2 parking lots? I mean, if we listen to people in the audience, you know, people don't want 2 parking lots, so why would we spend our money on that? And some other folks on the board felt differently. Anyway, the housing group, they removed one of them, and they went to a 3rd property, and that has some real potential. So they listen, and I think that goes a very long way. And if we have that type of, like, people involved that way, with that type of a mindset, I think there might be less criticism and more progress. So it's just, you know, something that I've observed.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Has RUPCO been working at all here?
There's a lot of talk about RUPCO. They're not working here at this point in time. The housing committee is simply looking at the 3 properties that are now being evaluated more deeply. Last week, I went on a nice several-hour tour of each of the properties with the design firm and one of the co-chairs and a member of the housing committee. And we looked at the 3 properties, and it was very fascinating, the pros, the cons, the potential challenges. So they're going to go back, they're going to put their report together, and we'll see what happens, what they recommend. You know, but we looked at the Mountain View parking lot, we looked at a property on Xena Highwood, and we looked at a property off of Xena Road. So there's some real potential, and it doesn't only have to be affordable. A couple of the properties have the ability to include mixed housing, which is kind of exciting.
Hey, Woodstock is sitting there on a lot of excitement.
I think so.
And I think that this is a very exciting time for Woodstock,
Yeah, it certainly is.
you know, because we have the history and you have the Historical Society of Woodstock. And you go, Woodstock is very forward thinking, I believe,
I do too.
because there is a community in Vermont that has a community, which is beautiful, and it's been there since, you know, like Woodstock. It's been there the day one or whatever. That community stood still somewhere in the late 1700s.
Interesting.
And you go there, it's filled with tourists, and you have all these people that come and they look at these old buildings, and you know, there is nothing new.
Interesting. Yeah.
They are so into yesterday,
Yeah.
and Woodstock is so into tomorrow.
Yeah. You're right. And it is very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the challenges is learning how to work with tomorrow in a more positive way.
Yeah.
And I think you'd be great.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I really do.
Thanks.
So what is the situation with, now we have the school opening or closing.
Right.
We have some mixed housing on the agenda.
Yeah.
What about the streets?
Well, we have this group called Complete Streets, and they're doing a really good job. Actually, I hope to take a walk with them next week to actually see, it's one thing to hear the plans, and they're very excited about working with the state to make sidewalks and to extend sidewalks. And I don't have many of the details, but the state is gonna, basically fix Tinker Street, we could say, and they want to go up to Schoonmaker as far as the sidewalk. But Complete Streets wants for them to extend to the library or even the Bearsville post office. So probably one day next week, I'm going to take a walk with them and look around. But this is a real safety problem right now. I mean, we have so many people who come here. There's a lot more speeding. I just keep thinking, if we think about animals that get hit, this could be a human next. I mean, it really
we've
could
had humans hit.
Yeah, it's just scary and it's terrible. And given the parking situation, when you try to make a left on the weekend,
Yeah.
it's like roll the dice. I mean, do I go or do so I know several of us make rights and then we go out of our way, because do you really dare to make a left? You can't really see, or you pull your car out so far out that you're already halfway in the road. So I'm glad that they're doing the work that they're doing. I look forward to seeing it firsthand. Sometimes it helps to do the walk with them, and we're going to start down by Sunflower and make our way back up. That's going to be the plan. So I congratulate them for thinking about that. And if we look at some other towns, a couple of people have been hit by cars and killed by cars. So this is a problem that we have, and
I think that was really nice of them to think about going all the way down as far as the library.
Yeah.
Because right now, when you move the library out there, you've got a suburban, you've got a branch library.
Yeah, exactly. And if we can make Woodstock more walkable safely, we can walk our dogs more easily. People could push their strollers in town more easily. We'll feel safer walking and riding our bikes. And, if we think about the cycle, that means we're driving less, which means we're spending less gas and money on gas, but we're also, our air becomes cleaner, then we don't need as much parking. So it's a nice cycle that we could benefit from.
What about the electrical vehicles? How much parking, how many meters do we have?
I don't know of many. I think there's one or two back here, right?
There's one out here, there's one or two out here.
Isn't there? There's one by the supervisor's cottage, I think.
If we have more electrical parking, we will have more of those people.
That's true.
But then I don't know whether we've said, well, enough is enough.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be one in the parking lot behind Yum Yum Noodle.
There
I'm
is
not sure.
one. There
Yeah.
is one.
So we've got like a little sprinkling of them.
Yeah, but there's nothing really organized. So if we're
No.
going to have a parking, if we're going to have a parking lot, it would be
Yeah.
nice to have. I think that would be nice. But then
Yeah.
that is icing on the cake.
Well, I'd like to see us with a nice tree-lined downtown. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the bike paths, where we could ride our bikes more safely and have somewhere to park our bikes. I'd like us to be more walkable. And yes, electric vehicles. I mean, we can keep ourselves. It'll be cleaner,
Yes.
and that's important.
Yeah. And how is the economy going in Woodstock? What about the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, so the chamber is they're under newish leadership.
Yes.
Rachel Marco Havens, I believe, is running the chamber, and it seems like there is a very large support for artists, which is wonderful to see and hear. I know that they support our work with the Bears, so they have a willingness to engage in the community. They want to be part of the discussion about streets, safety, and I think that's great. So they have the energy and the motivation to be involved in our community. I don't know a whole lot beyond that about the chamber.
Well,
but I hear great things.
The revitalization is very new, so there really isn't anything to know yet
Yeah.
because they're still forming. And
I like the direction though.
and the energy.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
And the caring about Woodstock.
Yes.
Putting Woodstock and artists first. I love that.
Yes, but also just the energy and being young and all of those different things.
Yeah. I've met a couple of the board folks. They're amazing. So really a good group of people who care deeply about Woodstock.
Yes, and you need the youth because
Yes.
you're going to lead the community.
Yeah.
What about the music? Gosh, there's
Oh,
music
boy.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's another hot item. So we have people who are living in areas where apparently the music is traveling up the hill and it's disturbing them. The town board is contemplating this as well. It is, May 13th. May 13th, there's going to be a public hearing so people can come and talk to the town board. We're going to be listening to what you have to say. And I would say go to the town of Woodstock's website and look for the time for that public hearing. And also I'll post that on my Facebook page. But it is May 13th. So we're getting close to making a decision. People will have the opportunity to weigh in their thoughts about the current proposed legislation, and the town board will be listening. So I hope that a lot of people show up, and we will take that feedback, incorporate it into the proposed legislation, and then we're going to vote on it. So that's exciting as well.
Well, and does that include the drum circle?
Well, the drum circle is actually, in the current draft, is memorialized as being excluded from this, which is good, right? So we are respecting the intention of the drum circle. That was something that I fought for, that and busking. So folks, wanting to play their instrument right on the street, as long as the the owner of the store is okay with that, then, you know, let's have,
That's part of the
let's do that.
community.
It absolutely, I mean, that's like, I remember before I moved here, you know, it's fantastic, and it's a way for people to share their art, and I think it contributes to a beautiful environment.
Oh, yeah, and people enjoy saying, I
Absolutely.
came and sat on the sidewalk and,
Yeah.
and played my music.
Absolutely.
And not only that, it's fun to see them in Woodstock, and then see them, you know, playing in the city too.
Exactly.
So it's a wonderful thing.
I think so.
And the drum circle is amazing.
They're absolutely amazing. So we've got to protect that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea.
Yes.
So you're just into everything.
I don't know about everything, but there sure is a lot. That's for sure. Yeah.
What kind of a calendar do you have?
I'm still in the process of merging my calendars. I'm still working through that.
Is it the size of the state of Montana yet?
No, thankfully, no. Yeah, it's very interesting. When I was young, I would always think about people way back when, like, how did they accomplish so much when they had to travel by boat and horse? And yet they did all these things. So I was always fascinated with efficient use of time. And I think it's mostly served me well. Mostly.
What are your secrets?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that question. I think it's just
Well,
how I'm built.
I've always believed that you can get anything done as long as you're organized. And if you find that things aren't working out, you just need to get yourself reorganized.
Right. Maybe step away, come
Yeah.
back, and
Yeah.
get in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just, you know, women can do anything.
Yeah.
That's my personal attitude.
Yeah. I love it.
So what do we have as our final whatever? What would you like to say to the community?
Well,
Would you like to invite them to come to some meetings, invite them to vote?
yeah, I think, you know, what I'd like to do is ask the community to come to the forums, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Facebook or by email, and to ask me any question that you might have, to share your ideas. And yes, I'd like to ask every Woodstocker for your vote. I think that these are very exciting times. I think that these are very important times. And I will bring all of my experience to the table to do the best job that I possibly can to help move all of us forward together.
I think that's lovely. And we have 3 minutes. Well, let's go over this one more time so people so they don't forget. We have May 8th, 6:30 to 8:30, and that's down at the town hall.
Yes.
And then we have the 22nd, but we also have the 13th. You have something
No,
in,
May 13th is that's nothing to do with candidates. That has to do with the town board and a public hearing.
okay,
Yeah.
but that's still, people need to go.
Yes,
And,
definitely.
and where is it held?
I don't know if they decided where that's going to be held yet. So
they're
I would
working
say,
on it.
yeah, go through
Working on
the
it.
town website for that.
And then on the 22nd, from 6:30 to 8:30, you've got the town hall. The 31st, from 10:30 to 12:30 in the morning, the town hall. Now that's a weekend. And then Sunday, you've got 2:30 to 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then June the 22nd, you've got the meet and greet.
Yeah, that'll be a meet and greet for all candidates, and that'll be at the community center.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very, very busy calendar.
Have you got skates?
I need rollerblades. That's what I need.
Yes, because there's so much going.
Right.
And I think it's wonderful. You've done so much, and you have so much happening. And I thank you so much for coming. And Ellen,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you both
Thank
very,
you,
very
Ellen.
much. Thank you.